And with that, the voice of college football at Fox, Joel Klatt, is stopping by. Oh, it's anarchy, it's chaos. We've got another 12-team playoff being introduced. You know, I said this. Last year, Georgia's like, we probably have the best roster. We're not getting into the playoff.
Yeah.
I thought that was a legitimate argument. This year, it's, well, Georgia's got a bunch of losses. They should probably be in. I feel like this is making the arguments sillier.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a fascinating deal. I think it has been a huge benefit to college football, this playoff. I don't think that the rankings are as controversial because it's not as limited of an inclusion.
That's right.
So, you know, in a 12-team model, I just don't feel as bad for a bubble team in a 12-team playoff as I do as a bubble team in a 4-team playoff. Right? Does that make sense? Like, number 5 probably earned it and is like, they probably should be involved. But if you're 12 or 13, like Georgia. So, for instance, Georgia. I think Georgia controls their own destiny. If they win out, they'll be fine and should be in the playoffs.
They play Tennessee.
That's good. It would be a huge win. It would be at home. They haven't lost back-to-back games in the regular season since 2016. So, I expect Kirby Smart's team to play better than what they have been playing this Saturday. If they win and they finish 10-2, they're going to be in the playoff. The conversation of like, well, would they go as a 9-3? I just don't feel as bad for them. Like if they get left out at 9-3, it's like, well, sorry, too bad.
Yeah.
Like I don't have as much, I guess, grace in my heart for that setting. I will say this about Georgia just really quickly: the offense isn't even close to what they have been in the last couple of years.
Not a good O-line.
They were top 5 in offense each of the last 2 seasons. They're 50th this year.
Yeah.
They have dropped more passes than anybody in the SEC. And the offensive line is not even close.
Yeah. And
they're totally disconnected, by the way. And people can blame Carson Beck all they want, and I get it. The quarterback is always going to get the lion's share of the credit and the lion's share of the blame. Wouldn't you agree? And he is getting a lot of the blame, and in particular because of the turnovers. 14 turnovers in his last 6 games. That's, by the way, the most turnovers over the last 6 games than anybody in college football. That has to get cleaned up. However, nothing around him is going right. The O-line is playing terrible.
Yeah.
They got eaten up by Ole Miss. The wide receivers do not produce pictures on time, so when he's ready to throw, the pictures are not being produced in the right way. It's totally disjointed right now for Kirby's offense, and so their defense is going to have to go win this against Tennessee. If they're going to win, it's going to have to be a low-scoring game.
You know, it's funny. Because it's tucked up in the Pacific Northwest, I don't think most of the country, you and I follow it. I used to live there. Phil Knight, they got the biggest NIL in the country. And they've been dominating California recruiting. They get who they want. Almost every year, they get who they want. If there's a top defensive tackle in L.A., I trust them to get it over anybody else.
They've got more of the top-end talent out of Southern California than anybody over the last couple of years.
And so when I watch Oregon play, I think Texas has the most good players. I don't think I came into this season thinking Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. I like Dan Lanning.
Yeah.
Some of this is, I think they have great players. I think they got NFL guys. I think their speed's fantastic.
Yeah, speed.
I think they may be the fastest team in the country.
They are. I don't think that that's even in question, to be honest. And I've talked with coaches around college football, some that have played against Oregon, some that have just watched Oregon, but that's the word that every opposing coach or outside coach talks about: speed. They say it's everywhere. It is everywhere. It's not just, man, their wide receivers are fast. It's not just, hey, their running backs are fast. It's not just, hey, their second level on defense is fast, or their defensive ends are fast, or their secondary is fast. They have speed everywhere. And in this game and in college, speed kills. It is the name of the game. That's what made Georgia's defense a couple of years ago so incredible. Yes, they had power up front. There's no doubt. And they were able to own the defensive line and own the line of scrimmage, but they had speed. They could run. And that's what Oregon has. Oregon right now is the best team in the country. They're the most balanced, and they're getting better every single week. Dylan Gabriel gets better every week.
Yeah.
And remember, he's a transfer, so it's his first year in the system. So as he gets more comfortable, he's going to play more efficiently, and you see that. On tape, you see every week he gets a little bit better. If they can just stay healthy, which has been a bit of a question. Tez Johnson has been banged up, one of their wide receivers. Jordan Birch, one of their great defensive players, the defensive end, he's been banged up. If they can just be healthy, I think they're the best team in the country. I will just say this, though. I do believe still that Ohio State is the best roster in the country. Because when you look at the entirety of the roster for Ohio State, outside of the one game against Oregon, their defense has been totally dominant.
Yeah.
and they have an offense that can be as balanced as anybody in the country, and they can do that in an explosive fashion, maybe more so than anybody else. I can't, listen, I would love to see that rematch, Ohio State and Oregon. I think it would be a great game.
I think Shedeur Sanders has separated himself from the country in terms of quarterback. I mean, a year ago, we were on Quinn Ewers. We were on Carson Beck. I think Shedeur looks different. And I wouldn't be shocked if Travis Hunter wasn't a second or third pick. They control their destiny.
Yep.
When you watch them, this is what you do.
Yeah, this is a very nice intro for a team that you called the new fake ID of college football a few weeks ago.
I didn't know. 3 days later, they turned 21.
Oh, you didn't realize.
They didn't realize. They look young for their age.
I see what happened.
Yeah.
They were 20. They were almost 21.
I thought they were 18. They looked very young.
But they were 20.
Yeah.
Oh, and now they're 21.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But to be a grown man 21 where you have facial hair, you got to beat the Georgias, Ohio State, Oregon. Let's say they get in. Because I do think they're good enough to be in. Whether they get in or not, when I watch them, I think...
At their best, they're the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah, they're the best.
All due respect to BYU.
No,
they have the top-end talent like you're talking about with Shedeur and
They're the two
Travis.
best players.
Yeah.
In college football, that can be the game. Can they compete with an Ohio State, Oregon?
No.
What do your eyes tell you?
No, they can't hold up at the line of scrimmage. Their defense is vastly improved at the line of scrimmage, and they can win up front on the defensive side, but their offensive line would not hold up against Oregon. They would not hold up against Ohio State. They would not hold up against Georgia. They would not hold up against Texas. All due respect. I mean, I'm a buff. This is just like, you ask me a question, that's my honest take. They are at their best, the best team in the Big 12 right now. They've got the best core of wide receivers in the Big 12.
Yeah.
The defense has played incredibly well, and they are disruptive. I would call them a top 2 or 3 defense in the Big 12 right now, which is, by the way, an insane growth from what we saw a year ago. An insane growth. Like, the way that they got after the quarterback against Texas Tech last week was impressive.
Yeah.
And offensively, you know what they're going to be able to do with their speed, but their offensive line is still... It is the biggest issue that they have, aside from game management and the idea that they don't manage the clock very well and they don't manage fourth quarter situations very well. But their offensive line is still what they have to play around on the offensive side. Like for instance, this is how good Shedeur is. Colorado has given up, I believe it's 29 sacks to this point, which is a ton. That's 120th in the country. Okay, so near the bottom. I think there's 133 right now. And so they're near the bottom. And yet, he's still this good. Yet, the offense is still this good. Yeah. I'll go back to what we talked about before the season. Colin, I said that, hey, I think Colorado could win 8 or 9 games. And you were like, wow, why? And I this is what I said, verbatim. I said they gave up 52 sacks last year. If they don't even have to be great or good at protecting the quarterback. If they just get better and they give up somewhere in the 30s in sacks, they're going to win 8 or 9 games. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So are they great on the offensive line? No. But do they play well enough? Do they run the ball enough in order to allow Shedeur Sanders and that insanely talented group of wide receivers to affect and impact the game in the right way? Yes. Yes, they do. So now they control their own destiny in the Big 12, which means they control their own destiny for the college football playoff, which is remarkable, guys. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't care what you think about Deion. I don't care what you think about their style or what they do on social media. The coaching job that Dion Sanders has done at Colorado is remarkable, and he should be on a very short list this year for National Coach of the Year, period.
Or Coach of the Cowboys.
Why you gotta do that? Why you gotta do that?
So I was thinking about this. So, we look at Oregon beating Ohio State and having 500 yards and go, well, it was a blip. And I would argue it was scheme and speed. I think if you look at Indiana play, you see scheme and speed. That's what I see. Well coached, and they got dudes that can move.
Yeah.
I don't see the biggest up front. I see scheme and speed. Let me throw this at you. Indiana is a bad matchup for Ohio State.
I would agree with that. And it's not They don't have the speed of Oregon. I don't want to equate that. Like you bring it up. But yes, they play fast.
They get over the top on people, everybody.
And more specifically, and this is what you see, there is nobody in college football that as a group does a better job with the back shoulder fade than Indiana, which means that they love one-on-one matchups. What is Ohio State, and I think their Achilles heel on the defensive side, is their corners. Even though they're talented guys, Igbinosun on one side has struggled with penalties, and Burke on the other side is the one that Oregon got a few times for big plays over the top. So Indiana is going to target next week when they play Ohio State. They will target those corners. And like I said, nobody in college football, nobody, throws a more consistent back shoulder fade than Curtis Rourke at Indiana. And that's going to be difficult for Ohio State. That's where the game's going to be won or lost. Ohio State's going to want to make it everything but that. And Indiana might just sit back and be like, well, no, here's our matchups, and that's what we're going to take.
Because you're part of the traditional media. I'm a bit of a outlier. I'm not part of the pack.
You are?
You're part of the club. I don't get invited to the club. I am an outsider through and through, the contrarian voice of the common man. So if Ohio State loses a second game, they don't get in the playoff.
Yeah, they do. What are you talking about?
Oh, what if it's 44-32, and this is a team that can't stop a nosebleed?
They'll be 10-2 with their two losses to
the two best teams they played,
and two top three teams in the country at that point. So, but
a play away from losing to Penn State. You think I'm nuts on that? They lose to Oregon and Indiana, and a play away from losing to Penn State. Penn State was inside the 10-yard line.
Penn State, if they went out, will be in the top 5, and Ohio State won there. See, if Georgia finishes 10-2, they're going to have a win at Texas. If Ohio State finishes 10-2, they will have a win at Penn State. Like, that's absurd. That's absurd.
Texas is way better than Penn State.
This is an absurd take, and it will be run back. Ohio State will absolutely go to the playoff as a 10-2. There's not a doubt in my mind.
That's what a traditionalist inside the club would say.
No.
Beat it. Wait, time out.
Who is Texas beat? No, tell me. You tell me, Mr. Outside the Club, contrarian. Who is Texas beat?
Georgia has
Do they have a win that's even close to as good as at Penn State?
Well, Texas is going to lose one game. That's it. They're going to win the rest of their games.
Do you know that?
Well,
what if Texas A&M beats them?
As an outsider, I have that
perception. Game's in College Station. You don't think they're going to be ready to go down there? All those Aggies? You're going to be down there. Your Reveille's going to be running around. They're going to have the yell leaders. They're going to be sawing They got the band going. That's a tough place to play. You're just assuming Texas wins?
Let's clarity. If Georgia and Ohio State have 2 losses, my big win is crushing Texas. Yours is slipping by.
Crushing Texas?
Georgia.
Listen, Georgia, that was a great win against Texas.
Amazing.
You scored 23 points on a short field.
So what?
They drove the field one time to score a touchdown. They needed a 43-yard trick play to do it. This is the 50th ranked total offense in the country. You're going to stand on the stump for Georgia over Ohio State with the way that they've played? That's crazy. That is crazy. Meanwhile, Ohio State goes into Penn State, spots them a 10-point lead, comes back, doesn't give up an offensive touchdown, ends the ball game with the football in their hands after starting that series on the 1-yard line with 6 minutes to go. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills again. What are we doing?
What happens if Indiana?
Name Texas's best win.
They're not going to lose 2 games.
I don't care. Name their best win.
I don't know.
You don't know? Because guess why? There isn't one. It's Vandy, folks. That's their best win. Their best win is Vanderbilt. I'm not being facetious here. That's their best win.
Let's let them finish.
What is Ohio State's best win? At Penn State, which is a top 5 team. But this is wild.
Your argument... you're missing the argument. My argument is if Indiana, which matches up well with Ohio State, beats them. So let's get Texas out of it. This is a Georgia-Ohio State argument.
Yeah, and Ohio State is going to go. Georgia at 10-2 is going to go because that means they will have won this week at home against Tennessee. Those 2 teams are totally safe as 10-2s. Totally safe. Okay. The questions then become, does Tennessee get in? Does Ole Miss get in? Does Alabama get in? Like, those are more the questions. Georgia and Ohio State as 10-2s are going to the playoff. Mark my words.
Michigan is so bad You're going to have one win, a narrow win over Penn State if you lose to Indiana.
You keep saying a narrow win. How is Georgia's win over Texas not a narrow win?
It was literally, physically took your breath away. It was like Texas's best O-line is being manhandled. It was physically like it was like a fist fight that ended in the second round. It was like, what am I watching?
Did we not see Ole Miss manhandle Georgia last week?
Well,
what am I watching?
SEC's a different ballgame.
Oh, here we go.
SEC's the best conference. I didn't say it's the most fun to watch or has the best fans. It's got a little more NFL feel to it. That's how I view it.
There are more great teams in the SEC this year.
Yeah. Last 20
and Georgia's had to play a lot of them.
Yeah, it's brutal.
No, I'm not saying that it's not.
Yeah.
Colin, Ohio State is not missing the playoff as a 10-2.
Okay.
That's craziness.
What if it's 44-20?
What?
Indiana runs them off the field.
I don't think that's going to happen.
All right.
Two, okay. Georgia just got ran off the field.
You want the spread for Ohio State, Indiana? You want to
Let me guess it. Let me guess it. I would say in Columbus, 12.5.
Colin?
7.
Ohio State's 9.5. Big favorites at home.
I would take Indiana in a heartbeat.
Oh, boy.
Okay. To cover.
Yes, to cover. Listen. Hey, again, one of us is in the club.
You see what I deal with every day now, Klatt? Are you driving?
This is wild. Like who is getting included over? Like, what's the bubble discussion? You just throw out if Ohio State loses, they're not going to go. Who's going instead of Ohio State as a 10-2?
Let me tell you something.
Miami?
Utah
what are we
got
talking
job
about
this weekend. Maybe they.
Well, who are we talking about? Like 10-2 Tennessee, 10-2 Ohio State.
I don't have all the answers. Le Provocateur is asking you questions which, as a traditionalist, a member to the club, a gold card, is unwilling to answer. You know what? When you come back...
I'm not unwilling to answer. I answered everything very bluntly.
All right. We had had like 3 weeks of no arguing.
Well, you didn't bring up just craziness in the last 3 weeks.
I would like to watch Ohio State get better like Oregon.
Have they not gotten better?
They played weaker teams.
How many touchdowns has their defense given up since the Oregon game?
Yeah, it's funny. They've played one great offense. Got run out of the building. Their defense did, not their team.
And Georgia's defense didn't get run out of the building last week?
Well, Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart. You got like NFL, coach, NFL quarterback. It's hard.
It's the level of excuses that you're giving for them down there is wild. I think that Ohio State has gotten much better. They've run the football. So the 6 quarters. See, here's the problem: is you just don't have the data, and I've got the data. So here's the data.
Okay.
The 6 quarters after Josh Simmons got hurt, their starting left tackle, they were putrid running the football. They were very good up until that point. 6 quarters after he got hurt, not very good at all. 2 yards per carry, actually. 2 yards per carry. Then all of a sudden they changed up their offensive line. They moved their All-American left guard out to left tackle, Donovan Jackson, and last year's starting center, Carson Hinsman, moves in at left guard. Since then, what have they done? They've run it for 6.5 yards per carry. And you're telling me that they haven't gotten any better. But that's weird because the data suggests that they have.
Just like last Tuesday, viewers, we've had a little debate here. You can vote. You can vote on the side that has your back and common sense or the crazy side.
Oh man, this is so good.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to let it play out.
You said that they didn't get any better. Georgia is literally getting worse. Carson Beck leads the country in turnovers in the last 6 weeks.
I don't think Georgia's great. I'm not making an excuse, but that conference, couple losses, you're in.
But that's what I said as well. I feel like the goalposts are moving.
Yeah.
That's what I do here. That's
what the team that lost last Tuesday said.
Is that what they said?
Among other things.
Yes.
Okay, I got great seeing you, by the way.
Has it today?
It was good.
It was good.
The first 9 minutes were gold, and we were friends. And then you got off the reservation a little, and we just battled. But you know what? That is what it should be about. We don't have to agree on everything.
Just two Americans disagreeing politely.
Right. And still friends.
Yes, very much so.
I don't have a problem with that. Most of the country does, but I don't have a problem with that.